Good morning, all you scared hiding under your desk idiots. This is your ticker guy coming at you from somewhere. All right, folks. Fauci and another epidemiologist. Oh, life will never go back to normal until there's a vaccine. We heard Fauci again and Birx again that oh, no. They essentially tell us yesterday again, no, life will never go back to normal. Oh, my God. People, they act like this is the first communicable disease, the first respiratory virus that has ever come into the history of mankind that's easily transmissible. Oh, what a load of complete bullshit. It is neither the first or the last. Let's just review the basic math again. Okay, just the basic math. Of the people who show up and get tested, about 15% of them require hospitalization. We know that 50% of the people who get the disease do not show symptoms. They're asymptomatic. Okay? So that's 7.5% of the people who get it become symptomatic and require hospitalization. Of those people, about a quarter end up in ICU. All right? So they require serious intervention. All right. So now we're at about 2%. 1.8 really when you get down to it. Now, if you're going to die, you're going to end up with a serious enough case that you would want an ICU bed first, right? I mean, if that doesn't happen, then you don't die. All right? So we'll just, I'm not even going to go there, how many people go into ICU and survive, which, by the way, is an even further divisor, all right? You know, percentage times percentage, right? We won't even go there, all right? Of those people, just assume everyone that goes into ICU expires, every single one. In New York, of those people who do not have one of a list of comorbidities has died, is 2% of the total that have died. 2%. Do you realize that this means that if everyone who goes into intensive care dies, if you are a person walking around in the general public and you get this disease, your odds of expiring are 0.04%. 0.04. I'm going to do this math again in a written ticker because you're hiding under your desk for a risk of less than 4/100ths, because obviously not everybody that goes into ICU does die. But let's just assume that if you need to go into ICU, they just pull out a pistol, put it to your head, and blow your brains out right there. 0.04. And this is without any of the interventions that we can provide that drop the case fatality rate even further. And life will never be the same in America until we have a vaccine. Oh my blankety blinking God. This is so stupid, it belies words. It really does. Never mind that we have very good evidence that continues to come in that hydroxychloroquine actually does work. And if used early in the course of the disease, is probably better than if used later in the course of the disease. We also now have we got people that are actually, we're going to find out whether or not anybody that has RA or lupus and is taking this as a maintenance drug is actually showing up in the hospital with the disease. You know, there's about 3 million Americans, ladies and gentlemen, that take this drug as a maintenance dose. Okay, so they have this in their body all the time. Now, that's a statistically significant part of the total American population. It's about 1%. And we now have enough cases that are confirmed by test and people who land in the hospital that about 1% of those people with cases, okay, and remember now, we're not talking about a small number of people anymore, okay? When there were not all that many positives we had a different situation. But now we have, more than 250,000. And in fact, we've had more than 250,000. We've got 1/3 roughly, people who have tested positive for coronavirus. So we have about 300,000 Americans, a little more than that, that have been confirmed to have coronavirus. All right. So there should be about 3,000, if they are evenly represented, people with RA or lupus that are taking hydroxychloroquine on a routine basis that are in that sample. There should be 3,000 of them. Well, there's enough there for a statistically significant result. Are they there or aren't they there? This is a free piece of statistical evidence and very strong evidence whether or not hydroxychloroquine works. Very strong evidence, and it has no risk. It shows zero risk, folks, because you don't have to give somebody a drug. They're already taking it. Now, let's go back to that 2% of deaths in New York. The Communist Chinese Party virus is potentiated by the PieHole virus. That is no bullshit. The PieHole virus. Why do I say it's the that particular virus? Well, because let's look at Louisiana, which is having a terrible outbreak. And, of course, you have everybody screaming that this is well, not everybody. AOC is screaming this is a racist virus. Well, in Louisiana, 70% of the people who have gotten the virus and died are black. Okay? 70%. That's a terrible number, right? Well, what's the skew of black people versus white people in Louisiana? Well, about 30% of the population of Louisiana is black. That looks kind of bad, right? Except, wait. Let's look at underlying conditions. Yeah, here's the underlying conditions table. Asthma and cancer are associated with a statistically significant percentage of the patients. But cardiac disease, 22.67. Chronic kidney disease, renal failure. By the way, renal failure is really serious. It killed my aunt. 25% of the patients. Congestive heart failure, 11% of the patients. These are people who died. Diabetes, 43.5%. Hypertension, 66.4%. Obesity, 24.7%. Obesity is assumably with one of the others. And then pulmonary is 14%. So heart disease, serious pulmonary conditions like COPD, things like that, those are bad. However, the big four are diabetes, hypertension first, diabetes, chronic kidney disease, and cardiac disease. All of which, folks, are very serious morbidities. And what is it that's associated with obesity, diabetes, and hypertension? What tends to produce all of those? Your PieHole. Whose responsibility is that? Yours. What is this BS that we've heard from social justice warriors for how long? Yeah. Can we cut the bullshit, folks? Can we just cut the bullshit? Life will not go back as we know it. Because if you do not have one of these conditions, your risk of dying if you contract this disease is 4/100ths of 1%. 4/100ths. And that assumes that everybody that goes into ICU expires, which we know is not true. Okay, so I'm overstating the case by a significant percentage. A decent percentage of the people who go into ICU do not expire. Now, let's assume that we're not intubating people when we shouldn't. We're not doing stupid things, which we kind of sort of are. But even if only a quarter of the people who go into ICU come back out, all right, you're under 4/100ths of 1%. Life is never going to be the same in America with a fatality rate of 4/100ths of 1% for healthy people. 4/100ths if you get this disease. Excuse me? 4/100ths of 1%. Now, let's assume that we have 330 million Americans and we let this thing rip all the way to herd immunity, which is about 66%. Okay, how many people would die? Well, that would be 330 million Americans. 66% would be about 217 million Americans. And that would mean that out of those, we'd lose about 80,000. And that would be sad. But then it would be over. And what do we lose those over? Well, we lose those over a period of years. Would you compare 80,000 deaths with the number of people who die from opioid overdose? That's about a year and a half's worth. How about those people that die from car accidents? How about those people that, go down the list of things that kill people. How many people die from smoking-related causes, all-cause mortality related to smoking? About 500,000 a year in the United States, something like that. There are 1.5 million heart attacks and strokes a year in the United States. Strokes tend to be extraordinarily debilitating if they don't kill you outright. And yet life is never going to be the same. It's never going to be the same for a disease that is secondary to the PieHole virus. And the PieHole virus is a bunch of scolds running around telling you that you're healthy at any size and everything's okay and you could do whatever the hell you want and there's always a pill. There's always a pill. There's always a pill. There's always a pill. And by the way, maybe there always is a pill, sort of. No, it doesn't always work. But has anybody paid attention to Bahrain? Do you know that Bahrain has a case fatality rate of about 0.5%? Now, Bahrain has fat people. Bahrain has diabetic people. Bahrain has all other sorts of the comorbidities that we have. I don't know what their percentages of those things are. They're not reporting them. But Bahrain does have all those things. And Bahrain started handing out people hydroxychloroquine at the first indication that this disease was there in people. And they were the first country to do it. Okay? First country to do it, starting in late February. They have a 0.5% case fatality rate. Instead of 2%. So it cuts you're screwed percentage down by about 75%, looks like, right? Yeah. Can you come up with a better excuse for why it ends up that way? No, probably not. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Something that costs 20 cents a pill. Henry Ford Health System, by the way, big health system in Southeast Michigan. They're the ones that were, one of their hospitals, the one that cut the tumor out of my mother's colon. They have found and are using doxycycline instead of Z-Pak in those patients for which Z-Pak is contraindicated. Now, this means that they can use the combination therapy in many more people, because the problem with Z-Pak is that it is the one that causes the QT elongation in a lot of people, thereby is quite dangerous. It can give you a fatal arrhythmia. So if you happen to have heart rhythm problems to begin with, whether it be through cardiac disease or just because you have them, taking Z-Pak is a very bad idea. It might kill you. The doxycycline doesn't have that problem. Doxycycline, by the way, do not attempt to doctor at home with this, okay? Doxycycline is all tetracycline antibiotics are extremely bad if you take them as a pregnant woman, because they can permanently damage unerupted teeth, which means in your baby. If you're a child and take it, it can permanently discolor your adult teeth that haven't come in yet. So there is also a risk of other issues. Some people are allergic to tetracycline, so you do need to be careful. Okay, these are prescription medications. You should not be farting around with these through some back channel, back alley kind of thing. But we're going to get the data on whether or not the prophylaxis works, because now independent individuals who happen to have access to Medicare and Medicaid information, they're going to start compiling this. Whether the government likes it or not, they're going to release it. It's going to come out in the next few days. And the idea that we can't go back to normal until we have a vaccine is just bullshit. Gates wants his digital immunity certificates. You know what? He needs a pair of cement shoes if he really thinks that people should put up with that sort of crap. No, we will not put up with that sort of crap. I won't do it. And if you think that we should be imprisoned in our own house, look, folks, the facts are what they are, okay? The incidence rate, the attack rate of this virus rolled over before all these lockdown measures were put into place. There you go. That's just the way it is. And, that's how it is. The people that are innumerate in this society are just astounding. They really are. They're astounding. And that the mitigation measures had absolutely nothing to do with this rollover. Now, exactly what they are is not a known fact yet, but we will find the answer to that eventually. Notice that Fauci and Birx are not talking about vectors at all. Why aren't they talking about vectors? Because as soon as you talk about vectors, people are going to start talking about HIV and their failures in that regard to deal with vectors. The other thing is there's never been, and again, folks, I'm going to say this as many times as I have to say this. It's a fact. Science is one of those funny things. It is a fact that we have never come up with a persistent vaccine against any coronavirus in either humans or animals. Never. Coronaviruses do attack animals, including animals we use for food. And as a result, there are vaccines in veterinary practice. They have to keep being reapplied because they wear off. We do not know whether or not antibodies in humans for this virus are permanent. We don't know if you get permanent protection or if the antibodies wane over time. We have no idea. It's too new. We'll learn this. But if, in fact, they wane, then a vaccine is a complete waste of time. So what these people are saying is that there will never be life that's normal in the United States. Oh, bullshit. Folks, this is not the first rodeo with a virus. Not even close. Secondly, quarantining and shelter-in-place orders against healthy individuals are blatantly unconstitutional and illegal. Blatantly. And we, the people, should rise up right now and say, we're just not going to do it. Quarantining ill individuals? Well, now that has a long history of being upheld as legitimate in public health. But quarantining healthy individuals? There has never been such a reaction, a mass hysteria among people in the world ever in the history of the planet. It has never happened before. Show me where it has. It never has. Advising people to stay home if they are at high risk, if they suffered from the PieHole virus, well, yeah, that'd be a real good idea. Using hydroxychloroquine as a prophylaxis might be a real good idea. Hey, how come that data isn't already out? Wouldn't it solve essentially all of these problems, including the healthcare overload risks, if it turns out that the prophylaxis works, and therefore for people that have one of these underlying conditions, which, by the way, all but 2% of the people who die do, if they were to use that as a prophylaxis and then we all just went back to work? Well, some people would get sick and a few people would die. But people die all the time. Remember, again, folks, 7,700 people expire in this country from all-cause mortality in the United States every single day. 7,700. And we are out here yelling about the fact that over the last a little more than 15 days, we've had, 3,800, let's see. Let me get my spreadsheet out here. I'll give you the exact number. We have had, where's the death number? Okay. Well, actually, okay. Is that the death number? That is the death number. We've had 10,000 people die. Okay, that's really sad. According to this data, okay, 10,000 people have died. All right, so we've had 1.5 days worth of death across the entire United States since this thing began. 1.5. That's all. We are how far into this at this point? And we've had 1.5 days worth of death. At the same time, we've consigned 150,000 Americans who are in their last day of life to not have the social comfort and pleasure of the people they love. And we can't make it up to them. They're gone. They're dead. Yeah. We have screwed more than 10 times as many Americans on a permanent basis than have passed from this virus. This is not a novel thing, folks. Good God. Respiratory viruses, listen, respiratory viruses come, respiratory viruses go. The idea that we can't go back to normal is just a load of bull. If you want to hide under a rock, you want to hide in a bunker for the rest of your life, you go ahead and do that. All right, you want to tear the social fabric of this country apart, tear its economy apart, and put millions of people out of work and end up with far worse problems, you go ahead and do that. Eventually what's going to happen, especially if you're one of those obese people that suffers from the PieHole virus, because you've done a bunch of those things and created yourself a problem where you have the PieHole virus because on your own free volition, you've ingested and continue to consume the PieHole virus, and you did all of these things. Okay, you did all these things of your own free will, and now you insist that everybody else be locked in their house. Well, why don't you just go talk to your doctor, see if you can take HCQ, and if you can, why don't you take it and go about your life? Because you know what? There's zero precedent for what we're doing right now, but there's also zero reason to believe that that life doesn't go back to normal. Well, that's only because all of you scaredy cats will not face the fact that there will always be viruses. There have always been viruses. They're not going to go away. We're not going to be able to treat every single one of them. And the next one that comes, which could be considerably worse than this one really isn't all that bad when you get down to it. When you get one like SARS, it kills 15% of the population and 50% of those over 65. What are you going to do then? Something to think about.